I'm James Dart, co-founder of Inspire You and Yes I Will Vote, and welcome to the third episode of Remoaner Telling Our Story podcast series. On today's episode, we have Anthea Simmons, well-known figure in our community, one of the leading grassroots campaigners out there. We discuss all things from what the future holds for our community, where we went wrong in the past, and why the grassroots is so important both then and now. Hope you enjoy. So Anthea, hi.
Hi there.
Hi,
James.
Thank you for being on Remoaner's Telling Our Story podcast. As I said to you just a minute ago, a bit of a tongue-in-cheek title, but with the idea of telling the stories of the main campaigners from the sort of People's Vote period. So that's the period from the referendum through to the 2019 general election, documenting those stories. And your story, I think, obviously you and I, we've known each other for a little while, both sort of Devon for Europe, which we'll come to later on. But to start with, I want to know who Anthea is. So yeah, who is Anthea, and what were you doing prior to all of this pro-EU stuff?
I was, well, my background is I'm ex-City. I was in asset management, quit in 2000, and I've been sort of raising my son and pottering about in the West Country, basically. And I got very involved in a campaign to improve access to opportunity for minority groups, and to get more women on boards. And I'm afraid I'm one of those people who assumed, I think, that we would stay in and that Remain would win. And I mean, apart from wearing badges and stickers, and I didn't really get involved in any kind of campaigning before at all, I'm ashamed to say. And I got involved really because I went up to a conference at the QE2, so I got involved only in 2017 actually.
17, yeah, okay, yeah.
To my shame.
Yeah, well, that's not shameful, is it? Like, I think as a lot of the campaigners who ended up campaigning in the sort of the PV period, a lot of them did come into it after the vote, didn't they? Because I guess they assumed, like a bit like you and I did, that it was going to go the way of Remain. Why should we be too concerned?
I mean, I thought you are one of the things, you know, what was I doing when the actual vote itself? Well, I think just crying, really. You know, I mean, I just couldn't believe it. I absolutely couldn't, you know. I think we all, most of us, I'm sure, stayed up all night listening and heard the Farage little spike for the pound. I'm sure that was just a stunt to give the Hedgies a bit of a turn on sterling. Yeah. But yeah, I was just devastated, and I think I was, you know, I just went around in a cloud of devastation and also real fury at how little other people cared about it. It's like, why aren't you bothered? This is bad. Oh, well, you know, there you go. Win some, lose some. It just, I mean, I fell out with a lot of people very quickly.
Like friends and family, you mean, or?
Yes, because it just because of the apathy.
Right.
And so I sort of got involved in a way in that I was, you know, blogging or tweeting or Facebooking about how upset I was and trying to find kindred spirits around me. And then I think I saw a Facebook post. Actually, I'll be brutally frank. I saw dear Peter Sturgis, you know, with his ponytail and everything, and I thought, oh, it's just Totnes weirdos, you know, just not gonna, it's not really for me. And I was in East Devon, and then I went up to that conference, and I spoke to Mike Galsworthy and Ian Dunt, and then I met Peter again with a few other people, and they explained that they were really very much in Central Devon and South Hams. And I thought, oh, well, maybe we could do with having something in East, you know, Tiverton, Honiton, which of course is incredibly Levy. And so Alex, you know, founder of Devon for Europe, came around with Peter, and they put me through the ringer to see if I was serious, and that was it. That's how I got stuck in.
You didn't make that ponytail joke to Peter, did you?
I did actually tell Peter once that there was a stage where I thought, whoa, okay, we're talking, you know, Devon twinned with Narnia here, so.
Just on the ponytail. Imagine if you'd have just been like, the ponytail's too much, not for me, sorry, I'm out at that stage.
No. That's one thing you learn campaigning. You must not judge people by the package they come in. It really is a big mistake.
Or just generally in life, really.
Just generally. But I mean, when you're standing on a street stall and somebody comes up to you and you think, in the early days, you think which way they voted.
Yeah.
And
I've actually got.
You do.
I think it was the only time I did a street stall in Plymouth. There was obviously Plymouth, as you know, I'm sure you did plenty of
lots
street stalls there. Is quite a different street stall area to Exeter and other parts. A little bit, a bit more rough and tumble. And there was a guy who came up to the stall, and he was walking right up to me. He looked fairly angry, bald head, and but his bald head was covered in tattoos, and tattoos all in every part of his skin that I could see. And he was wearing a tracksuit, and you looked at him and you just thought, without wanting to seem too judgmental, you looked at him and you just thought, this could be trouble potentially. And he came up and he was just the most lovely, well-spoken guy. He was from Uzbekistan or I think one of the countries around there. And he was just like, I can't believe what you've done to a country. It's so bad. I thought you were this really tolerant, sensible country. I just can't understand it. And I was like, oh, I've misjudged you, mate. I have totally misjudged you. So yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's inbuilt in us, isn't it, to see something and to
unconscious bias. We've all got
exactly.
It.
Yeah. But no, that was that for me. That was oh, okay. I need to be a bit more open-minded when I'm doing street stalls and stuff, because clearly, But no, let's go back to Devon for Europe. So Devon for Europe. You joined Devon for Europe in 2017. Was that right?
Yes. Yeah. And I ran my first street stall in Axminster in the autumn of 2017.
Yeah. And what was it you wanted at that stage? Were you thinking, I want to stop Brexit? Was that your goal, or were you thinking, keep the conversation alive, see where it takes us? What were the aims at that stage? Stop it. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Stop it. Yeah. And make people aware, make them think, oh my God, that was a terrible mistake. We had a protest vote, but we didn't like the look of, we couldn't stand Cameron or whatever it was, and just say, oh, actually, don't really, really want to do that. We just, we just need some change, but that's maybe not the change that we need. So yes, it was definitely stop it.
And on the street, where you get, because obviously the few that I did, we had the Brexitometer thing where we voted, didn't we, for is it going
actually,
well?
That was Devon for Europe sent that viral, because we did one in Sidmouth. Somebody at Shropshire, I think, had done one, but it was very sort of minor, and I thought, oh, we should roll this out everywhere. Yeah. So we did one at Sidmouth. I think we were and then we tweeted it, and it just got hundreds of people just went, oh, we want to do that. And later on in the campaign, we did a moodometer, because we wanted to engage more with what people felt. How is it making you feel? Exhausted, bored, fed up, angry, whatever it was. So a very useful tool, actually, to engage with the public.
There was. And I found, actually, of all the sort of frontline campaigning that I've done, I actually found that the most fun and engaging, because it drew people in, even if they didn't really know what the hell it was. They were like, oh, I quite like voting for stuff. I don't care what it is. I'll just come over. And that was just a good hook, wasn't it? A good engagement.
Very good hook. And the other thing is, often you might have couples or groups of friends who would come up, and one of them would put a sticker in someone that said, yeah, I think it's going to be great, or I don't care what it's going to cost us, I want it regardless. And they'd be looking at the person saying, what? You're putting it there? And they go, yeah. And the people say, never knew.
How many marriages did Devon for Europe break up, Anthea?
Well, I think one of the best, we don't think we broke it up, but the husband and wife came. The husband gave a load of spiel about, you're mad, you're anti-democratic, you're unpatriotic, and how he was going to move to Spain anyway, so didn't really care. And his wife was just mouthing behind his back, I'm a Remoaner. And as they walked away, she picked up a bollocks to Brexit sticker and slapped it on his back and said, come on, darling, let's not talk about this anymore. And then she took another one and put another one on him too. And he's going through Exeter with bollocks to Brexit on his back. And the wife was like, that was thumbs up, top result. I did see quite a lot of that, actually. I suppose actually I should backtrack a little bit. I got involved with the Lib Dems in Axminster because I thought we've got to have somebody who can overthrow this, and I sort of campaigned on the street for them. And
So was that before Done for Europe?
Before Done for Europe, yes.
Yeah.
So there was we had an out of town candidate. It was very hard, because he was hardly there, and it was just a very hard sell. But I really wanted to. I was campaigning on the basis you've got a chance to reverse this. If we get Lib Dems in, or they get the whole balance of power, we can change the direction. And I remember going to some of the estates in Axminster and having people come out and say that I should be hung, I should be shot, I should be strung up. What did I think I was doing? And these were 70, 80-year-old white men.
Yeah.
Who were incredibly aggressive and
it was weird.
Very, very chippy and angry. And it's like, you got what you want, what's your problem?
Yeah.
Very, very strange.
It was, and that's, for me, I remember just thinking, as a school teacher, some of this sort of behavior would just get you expelled from school. Like the behavior was so extreme for grown adults who, many of them were professionals in their own right. They would never behave that way in like a professional, to just walk up to people on the street and to use some of the language and to be so aggressive. I just thought something has gone wrong in society. Like there's been a breakdown of like social norms here. Like this is not how we speak to each other. Even people we loathe, like you and I, like, we probably loathe like the far right, like EDL types, Tommy Robinson, but we would never go up to them in the street, partly because it would be a bad idea to do that anyway. But we would never think to go up to them and just be really abusive in their face.
I know. I had conversations with people where I said, "Are you listening to yourself? Is this the person you really are?
Yeah.
Are you really this vicious, rude? Is that what you are?" But it did feel like a stone had been overturned and all these things had crept out, and they felt legitimized and able to say exactly what they wanted, which was very, very sad. I think one of the most draining aspects of campaigning it was seeing so much ugliness and bile, and just thinking all this stuff was here all the time, and now it's out. The genie's out of the bottle. We're not going to get this back in again very easily.
No.
So,
and we've seen, obviously,
on the other hand, you get people rushing up to the stall saying, "Oh my God, thank you so much. Thank God somebody's on our side. I didn't realize there was anybody who was still trying to fight this," and families in tears, and some really moving conversations, and people clamoring to sign up.
Human emotion, wasn't it? Like elation and relief, all the way down to just, as you said, just abuse. Like, it was. We had a thing where we had a guy from a leading Danish newspaper came and spent 48 hours with me, and he was just shocked. It happened that we were doing another stall in Axminster, which is a pretty tricky place, and a guy was jabbing me in the chest, and this was not, he was just saying, "How do you stand that degree of physical abuse?" He said, "After all, you've had an MP killed. Do you feel unsafe? Do you feel you should have protection?" And I said, "I'm sure, it's not going to get to that, but there are times when you think, I'm glad there are other people here." And then we had a rule, we had to bring in Alex, obviously concerned about the team, said you cannot run a stall unless there are 5 of you. Once it kind of, once the kind of aggression stepped up. And you don't set up and you don't start until all 5 people are there. And we even had, often in some places we had spotters. We never needed them, actually. But, if you see somebody a bit leery coming towards you and they've had a bit of drink and, they're feeling they want to fight, and just somebody watching out to diffuse any situations. Yeah. And that's the thing.
Actually, I was going to say, just sometimes our sheer politeness and niceness really wound them up sometimes.
I think, and that's the thing, isn't it? Like, kill them with kindness, sort of, it does. I guess in some cases it can go the other way, but often it just de-escalates, because and that's the sort of thing that I guess you learn in a lot of different settings, isn't it? Is like how to de-escalate situations where there's a lot of heat and tension and stuff. But I remember when I was at a Sodom protest, and the yellow vest guys turned up, the sort of the far right, and I made the mistake of actually referring to one of them, because he was saying we should hang this person, and he was using the sort of the far right, like textbook of all the phrases that and I think I may have said like, "Oh, you fascist" or something, and I could just see him just go, like I could just see I was this close away from him, like actually physically assaulting me. And I remember just thinking, right, now I just need to de-escalate this a little bit. So I tried to use humor to de-escalate. It didn't really work, so I ended up just walking away. And I thought, well, I'm not going to do that again, even though they were literally behaving like proper far right thugs, like coming up and being like, "Move, we're here now, get out of the way, leave." And I was like, "No, I'm not bowing. I'm not like, I'm standing up for myself. I'm not moving to you fascists or something." And then I was kind of like, "Actually, there's 20 of you, and there's like 6 of us, and you've all got the potential to actually just batter us if you wanted to." And to be fair, there were police around and stuff, but I just thought it only takes one time, doesn't it? And we saw what happened in America last week. So
yes,
I mean,
exactly.
You know. Exactly. But let's move on, because we've spoken about that. So I wanted to ask you, do you think, obviously, the overall aim of Devon for Europe, which was the same aim as all the pro-EU groups around the UK, was ultimately to stop Brexit, or to force the people's vote, to give the people the chance to have another say, having known the facts and blah, blah, blah. Do you feel like Devon for Europe was successful in what it set out to achieve, other than, and stopping Brexit? Do you feel like, for me, I'll just give you my opinion first. I felt Devon for Europe was one of the best examples of community building, grassroots campaigning. I thought you guys were among the best in the UK that I've worked with. But I mean, to your mind, what did you feel like it was you were witnessing, like really successful campaigning?
Yeah, I think at the heart of it, Alex set up a very, very good team.
Yeah.
And we were very stable as a team.
Yeah.
And we were very, very committed and very passionate. And because we had teams in each of the areas who had their own, so they had their own figurehead, local leader, figurehead person who rallied them around, and people were highly motivated to run those stalls and to reach out to people. And the fact that we put on so many supporters, subscribers, I think at the peak we had 17,000, on the database, which is not bad, it's pretty good from nowhere.
No, really
good. And then the fact that we, Alex has always been very focused on single-minded messaging, don't dilute them, don't get distracted by trying to bring in other stuff, just keep it all very, very simple.
Yeah.
And we had, he's a good designer. We had very, very good leaflets. We've never used any of the PV ones, I have to say. We did our own, and we did very, very local stuff. I mean, we ran, he and I designed a leaflet together that was explicitly for Johnny Mercer's constituency. And it was about local issues, and it was in Plymouth Argyle colours, and we had delivered it to all the letterboxes, teams of us. And so it's just really, really thinking, what do these people want to know about? What do they want to, what's the thing that's really sticking in their craw at the moment? Why did they vote the way they did? So in terms of building up and reaching out beyond the bubble, I think we did a pretty good job. I mean, obviously the tragedy is it was then absolutely all blasted out of the way by that blooming election.
Yes.
And it could have been such a different outcome. I think it would have been a very, very different outcome.
Had the Lib Dems and Labour held their nerve and just
gone for that vote.
Yeah.
Gone for that people's vote. I think we would have won it. I'm sure we would have won it.
Oh, the people's vote referendum.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. No, totally.
We definitely have won it.
Totally. Yeah. The wind had changed. Like, it was blowing in our direction. It had been for, like, I reckon, for about 2 years. The polling showed that. And there were more young people coming in, and some of the oldies were sort of going out. And the math looked as though it was definitely there for us. It was there, which is why obviously the Brexiters completely refused and tried every trick in the book to make sure that there wasn't a vote, because they knew they would lose a second vote.
So. I mean, we ran some very good campaigns saying basically to people, if you want to make Brexit go away, there's only one way. And that's just to stop it, just to vote against it when you get the chance. Ask for a chance to vote against it, vote against it.
Yeah.
And that really did chime with people, because, of course, a lot of people are just fed up with the whole thing. And, we tried to explain to them that even if there was a deal, it wasn't the end at all. Brexit was going to be on the agenda, however much Rees-Mogg might try and hide it away by shutting down committees and things. It's going to be on the agenda for years.
Yep.
So that really chimed. So I think, what was it about WF? I think the leadership, the team, the obviously fantastic supporters, and also the fact that we were really proactive about getting people up to Sodom protests. All the meaningful votes, meaningless votes. We ran coaches up to there. That made people feel they were really fired up. They thought, great, I'm part of something and I'm doing something.
Yeah.
And then we ran masses of coaches to all the major marches. And again, that made people feel, I think they want to be identified with something that's dynamic and determined. I mean, there are times when I look back and I think, I feel a bit guilty about how much commitment and belief we had in the fact that we could stop it. And sometimes I think of some of those events I attended where, they were looking to you for hope, and you say, we can do this thing. And people are like, they're really at their bottom, their wits' end. And then they go out of that meeting and they go, yeah, Billy, yeah, I'm fired up too. And I believe in you. Think we let, the politicians let us down, actually.
Well, I was about to say, yeah,
we didn't let them down, but I still think what's very interesting is how much they need us now in terms of pastoral care and scooping them up. And we have these Euro Cafe, virtual cafe things every Saturday, and we started doing some evening things and running some events again. And people are desperate for it. And we've had a massive jump in Facebook follower, to the group since January the 1st.
Really? Yeah.
And people I don't think have been engaged with it. A bit like, after the election, after the referendum, suddenly people went, oh God, I want to be involved.
Yeah.
It's another thing. It's the same phenomenon all over again. People who weren't involved before now saying, crikey, I need to be with fellow Europeans. I'm desperate.
Do you think that the people who are coming now are people who were previously apathetic, or people who were previously pro-Brexit and now regretting the fact which way around?
I think there are one or two Remoaner now types.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of them are people who were disengaged.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
The people I call the shruggers. It's like, what can you do?
Yeah.
And now I think those people are sort of really feeling the pain of the divorce. And they want to find like-minded people. And when we add them to our group, you just get these messages of, oh, thank God you're out there, and thank God I found you, and I felt so alone. And it's just extraordinary. And I think that's one of the most, I've just written an article for it in West Country Bylines, actually, about how we're being asked to suck it up and say, oh, well, we lost, we've got to get over it and come together and all the rest of it. But we really can't. We really can't without people admitting guilt, paying a penalty for lying, and some sort of atonement. Why should we say, oh, well, all right, okay, never mind. We'll do our best,
Yeah, it's an extraordinary ask, really, to say, you guys need to get over the fact that we enacted a coup in the Conservative Party. We closed down Parliament to win.
Yeah.
We lied through our teeth day after day after day. And what we get as a result is decline and diminishment and more lies and deceit and this kind of Orwellian doublespeak. Why on earth would anybody get over, in inverted commas, that? Only somebody who doesn't love their country or who doesn't want a bright future would, quote unquote, get over that. Nobody in their right mind who loves their country, wants to see us progress and be powerful and open-hearted and open-minded and compassionate, would do anything other, in my opinion, than get active and fight it. I mean, yes, okay, fine. We didn't get people's vote, but there's still other. But we'll come to this. But I mean, I'm totally with you on the whole.
Yeah, and why should we endure it? It makes you complicit. I think as soon as you accept that, it's exactly what Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez said.
Yeah.
She said there can be no reconciliation without accountability.
Yeah.
And atonement. You can't. That people have to say. I mean, this is why I feel a bit. I think one thing where I was talking about with Alex about it earlier today, actually, about where Remainers, whatever, get it wrong, is that sometimes they go after people who've changed their minds, like, oh, the farmers, yeah, well, they should have known, we told them often enough, or the fishermen. or Piers Morgan, piling in on Piers Morgan. Frankly, the more people that are prepared to say, I was wrong about this, the better. We should be welcoming them.
Piers Morgan said he was wrong about something? I'm not sure.
He said he's wrong about Trump.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, but he's kind of...
Yeah, I know, but he speaks to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And to have somebody of that stature to a massive audience say, I got it wrong. People were telling me for ages, I refuse to acknowledge it. I got it wrong. It's a very, very important thing for people to see, because otherwise we stay entrenched in our tribes forever. And there is no way through if we stay in our tribes completely. I mean, not that I'm going to join, put even a foot in the camp of the Brexiter camp, at all. But we have to allow people to change their minds and move on, and welcome them and celebrate it.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to bit of your fingers crossed behind your back, but we have got to be able to do that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I totally agree with you, particularly around the farmers and the fishing community and stuff. I mean, when obviously March for Change were doing all the stuff around Save British Farming, and I was helping to run the social media at that stage, I just spent a lot of time just like having to hide Remoaner comment, Remainers going, serves them right, I've got no, and it's just like, oh.
Yeah, well, they shouldn't have voted.
We're trying to bring them on. We're trying to get them on side now. It's no good.
And also, they're victims. It's the criminals you want to get.
They are
go for the criminals.
Yeah,
go for the liars at the top.
They're exactly. The people at the top go for the elites. 100% agree with you. Right, so I want to move on. So, my next question is, it's an open-ended question. I'll let you answer it in your way. Are you, Anthea, a Remoaner?
No, I'm not a Remoaner. I'm a resistance fighter. I'm not Remoaning. Okay. No, Remoaning is a negative place to be in. It's a whingy, unproductive. No, I'm not. I was nearly going to do a bit of an Ian Dunt swear then, but I won't. No, I'm definitely not a Remoaner. None of us are Remoaners. None of us are fighting on a Remoaners. We're rebels. Rebels with a cause.
Yeah. So to your mind, what would you say a Remainer is in terms of the community that's sort of coalesced in the last 4 or 5 years? Didn't really exist before 2016. Obviously, there were lots of various tribes, progressives and liberals and socialists and so on. And then it all started to lots and lots of tribal allegiances sort of came together, didn't they? So what is a Remainer? And and the second part of the question probably is, do you see it remaining as a community, or do you think it will start to disband as other policies and things and politics just takes over from Brexit?
Well, what I'm hoping is that it will form the nucleus of it'll sort of harness this pro-European. But we have got the biggest pro-European grassroots groups in the whole of Europe.
Yeah.
And there's no accident about that. And I think that we'll begin to pull in people with many, many agendas. So I'm not really focused on, I suppose what I feel is that I'm a European, I'm an internationalist, I'm a cooperator, I'm a cross-border, I want cross-border cooperation, and I want us pulling together because of the really big thing the two big battles that we have ahead of us: defeating the rise of fascism, saving the planet. Those are really the two, and I think that will bring in a whole load of people. And bizarrely, we're going to find ourselves, I think, sometimes with some very strange bedfellows, like electoral reform. And, Farage et al. Want electoral reform. And arguably, if we'd had a representative parliament, we'd never have had a referendum or Brexit in the first place.
No.
So, I think, so now I'm beginning to sound like what the Romans ever done for us. And it's like, what are we ever going to do? But so now I'm saying, okay, electoral reform, defeating fascism. I think re-establishing truth and the rule of law is such a monumental, and the power of true democracy is such a monumental task. But I think getting everybody to wake up to the fact that they're being gaslit almost all the time, being lied to almost all the time.
Yeah.
And we've got to keep calling it out. And I suppose one of the things that's been fantastic for me personally is to be able to be involved in West Country Bylines, because suddenly I've got a platform where we're not campaigning to join. It's not a European perspective even. It's an internationalist, just, truthful, democratic voice.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, and I think that will pull a lot of people into hopefully a sort of coalition of people who want something better. You say, we deserve better than this.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw what happened in Hungary recently, where all of the opposition parties came together and fielded one single unified candidate against Orban. I feel like we're not quite at Orban yet, but we're not far. And I feel like that. I think
we're not far at all.
I think you're right. I think just literally having a unified group of people who want to reassert the sort of norms that existed prior to 2016, truthfulness, integrity, all of the basically the antithesis of the ERG.
Yeah, really, European values, actually. European values.
Yeah, exactly. Everything that's been, everything that was written down in the charter that we helped to write. And the literally the values that we teach in our schools. This has been one of my things that I've really struggled with. Is Ofsted would come into schools and say, you need to make sure that that your students are learning about democracy, the rule of law, tolerance, and liberty. And I'm thinking, democracy, the rule of law, tolerance, and liberty. Literally, the government that's asking us to instill these things in our students are just running roughshod over all of those.
Yeah, driving a coach and horses through the whole thing. Yeah. I know.
So, second question I wanted to ask you, this is sort of like under the identity thing, was, and I've asked a lot of pro-EU campaigners this, and I'm still not 100% sure what my answer to the question is, but what is it about the European Union as an institution, as opposed to, say, just the continent of Europe and its language and cuisine and diversity and all the rest of it? What is it about the institution of the European Union that makes you so passionate?
I defy anybody to not feel passionate if they walk into Brussels or Strasbourg and just feel that sense of, I know it's going to sound terribly kind of brotherhood, actually, and hope, and focus on the right things. When you walk through those corridors and you see people's offices and you see the posters up about, about bees, about the planet, about education, about opening doors and access to opportunity, all those, it just feels so positive, and there's so much energy. And the caliber of people puts with some notable exceptions, puts our MEPs to shame. I mean, these are proper heavyweight, hard-hitting, super bright, multilingual people who appear, when you meet them and when you watch them debating, to really, really care about building a better Europe. And the fact that it was a peace project, and the fact that it was about sharing and collaboration and doing things better. And I know it's got lots, I'm not wedded, I'm not obsessed with it as sort of as a thing in itself. But when you see all those people together in that hemisphere, and you see some of the things that are coming out, and some of the initiatives and some of the projects that cross borders, that cross cultures, that break down the tribes and remind us that we're just humans on the planet, and we have to work together. That is what I love. And then you come back and watch Parliament and watch the ding dong over the, in the public school environment, and the appalling standard of understanding of anything. I mean, it's clear that Johnson and his lot have no idea how the EU worked, what it did for them. I mean, now you're hearing stories that Boris Johnson is sitting down with businesses and saying, so what do you want me to do? Which regulations do you want me to burn? We don't want you to burn any regulations because we want to do business with the EU. Guess what? Oh, come on, there must be something. There must be something I can destroy as a benefit of Brexit. Because he didn't know how it worked.
Well, it was always going to be like this, wasn't it? It was always going to be, let's just get out and then we'll kind of work it out afterwards. Because
wing it. Do it in the classic
that's been his
way.
entire career to date, his entire life. I don't know if you read what he was like as a student at Eton, when he had this blasé cavalier attitude. And I remember
last minute. Everything at the last minute. Wing it.
Yeah. It's that sort of old money entitlement. I mean, I know Johnson's not old money like Mog, but he's still got that Etonian entitlement, hasn't he?
And also that the other thing is that strategy, he, as somebody very, I think it was Raphael Baer really absolutely nailed it in The Guardian when he said his strategy for dealing with everything is to leave it to the last minute, so there is no option but to do that one thing, because then he doesn't have to make a choice.
Yeah.
Because it's forced on him. Oh, that's all that's left to me. So, oh, that's brilliant. And also it makes him the center of attention all the time, because people are waiting to see what Boris will do. And he confuses that, or he sees that as leadership, when all it is being the bastard in the middle who's going to fuck it up. That is basically what it boils down to.
Yeah.
And everybody hanging on to wait to see what he will do. And then he'll wing it and tell you that anyway, whatever he said yesterday, it's this now today. And I never said that. Like Gove saying, we warned everybody there'd be disruption at the border. Yeah, well, where's that tweet? Where's that missive? Doesn't exist.
It's like that's it. All of that is bad enough in the context of Brexit and the future of the country and stuff, but in the context of COVID, that costs lives, and that we've had how many? Is it 80,000 now dead in the UK as a result?
Another 1,400 today.
I mean, history. I hope history will be. I hope we come to our senses, and history will just be absolutely scathing of the ERG Johnson this entire period, and also to some extent the public in terms of their apathy, and also their just in some quarters their willingness to go along with it whilst knowing. And I think I don't want to go over the top and compare and do the kind of classic what's it called, where you bring up Hitler or the Nazis in like Godwin's law or whatever. But when you hear the testimonies of people who lived in Europe during the 1930s, they all say we did sort of know, but we just kind of went along with it, and we just let it bubble away, and it just got gradually worse. Obviously, we didn't know all of the really, really, really dark stuff necessarily, but we were kind of aware it was going downhill, and we just kind of just kept quiet and shrugged our shoulders. And I have felt for the last few years that we are in that kind of we are kind of on that road now, on that journey. Exactly.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know.
I'm going to move on because I've got some other stuff I want to talk to you about.
Sorry.
No, it's not you, it's me. So I want to talk a little bit more about the grassroots. So the referendum was won in 2016 by the two Leave campaigns, Vote Leave, so Johnson, Gove and so on, and Leave EU, which was Farage and Banks. They, to my knowledge, didn't have a massive army of grassroots supporters. They mostly relied on money from wealthy backers and a massive social media hyper-targeting, cynical hyper-targeting campaign going after
those
cynical
Facebook
people.
Ads.
Yeah. So if you can win a referendum without having the grassroots, how important are the grassroots?
I think they're really, really important when you're trying to explain to people or trying to motivate people, engage people in the whole democratic process. They've got to see people, they've got to see faces, they've got to be able to talk to people, and they've got to be people on the ground who understand what the local issues are. And I think if we had, with the benefit of hindsight, the Remain campaign would have been so very, very, very different. And we'd have jumped on some of those lies and some of those reasons, that were given in Facebook ads and things, and we'd have headed them off at the pass. I like to think with enough people, to make a difference. After all, it was close. It's not as if we were completely, it's not as if it was a 70-30 vote or even a 60-40. And I think it's especially important because allegedly one of the reasons people voted the way they did was because they were sick of the elite power imposing decisions on them, and therefore to hear things from people on the ground and get involved with as big a cross-section of society as possible surely has to be a better way. Well, I mean, I think there was that wonderful one, I can't remember her name, it'll come back to me, who ran the Black Votes Matter campaign. And she said, I see grassroots campaigning as electricity. it's, you don't have to invent the power. The power's already there. You just have to find a way of giving it a conduit. And it's only people on the ground who can act as those, I don't know what you want to say, plugs or cords or something that lets the electricity find a way through and express itself. And so I think, and I like to think as we go forwards that, I mean, one of the things I posted on Facebook the other day was that we are now ambassadors for Europe. That is one of our key roles. We're here to show, we are the good guys. We are the progressive guys. We are the people you want to hang out with and be with. And we represent we have to represent the best of Europe, which is why I get annoyed when Remoaners take pot shots at farmers or fishermen.
Yeah.
Because it's like, no, you've got to be, I mean, I don't want to go the whole kind of proselytizing, almost evangelical route. But that's what we are. We are the representatives within the UK of a better future.
Exactly. Yeah. And you've got to be squeaky clean. This is the thing. This is why I always find it hard to campaign in the progressive space, because the standards you're held to are so ridiculously high, because what you're banging on about all the time are high standards. So if you fall short even a millimeter, you're going to get clobbered for it. Whereas if you're not banging on about values, you're not banging on about integrity and truth and all the rest of it, like the ERG don't, then you can just literally get away with anything. Donald Trump literally bragged about the fact that he could shoot somebody in the street and he wouldn't lose a single vote. And that's the difference. If you're if you're on your soapbox and you're trying to create a better world and you're saying our standards should be up there, if you fall short of those standards by a tiny bit, then all of a sudden you're a hypocrite and you just lose all your political capital overnight. And it's like, it's so hard. But anyway, that's something different. So
but can I just briefly go back to that thing we were talking about much earlier about this need to get political parties to just unify behind with one strategy. And I think this is one of the things that I find most distressing, is how quickly things that, parties that didn't seem tribal, as soon as there was an election, suddenly became intensely tribal. And one of the things we had to juggle was masses of criticism. Oh, you're Labour supporters. Oh, you're Liberal Democrat supporters. Oh, you're Green. I mean, none of these things, we just want Johnson not to get in. That's it. I don't care how you do it, but one of you've got to not split the vote. So when people say, oh, isn't it terrible Farage setting up another party? I think, no, good, let him do it. Because if he splits a bit of the Tory vote, that's fantastic.
He'll probably also likely split quite a bit of the Labour vote, I should think, as well in the north.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But I would really hope that the parties who have got to keep your eye, we kept saying this as a campaign when we were talking to other grassroots groups, eyes on the prize. Don't get distracted, eyes on the prize. What do you want? Go for that. Keep focused on that. And I would say, now, what will people want in 2024? They will want earlier, because there's some talk that he might go earlier because it's going to be such a shit show by 2024.
Yeah.
You want Johnson and the Conservatives out, this particular Conservative government. You want them out. So you have got to not split the vote. And you've got to commit to electoral reform after that.
Which
then you
I
can
think
do what you like.
all but Labour have, haven't they, at this stage?
Yeah.
So Labour's the key really here, isn't it?
Yeah. That's when the tribalism comes in again, because
it does.
Past the post favours the top two. So
and this is kind of why I've been asking the guests on the show to answer sort of what a Remoaner is, or slightly, what a Remainer is, because I'm curious to see if people now sort of like relegate their pro-EU cross-party hat and put their tribal, Labour, Lib Dem, Green hat on again. And if that happens, I could, it could be that the energy dissipates and then hatchets come out and it starts to, fall apart a little bit. So I guess that's a separate question though, which is how do you prevent that from happening? Do you have any solutions, or do you just think carry on doing what you're doing with bylines and that sort of stuff?
I think that, and plus the team that, again, going back to the team that we've got at Devon for Europe, is we are definitely not party political.
No, which
and
helps.
It really, really does help.
Yeah.
And I think if anybody suddenly just developed very party political leanings, I'm afraid they'd probably be out, because we just can't have it. We've got to represent, including, one nation, progressive Tories, you know, people like the people who would vote for a David Gauke or a or a Dominic Grieve or an Anna Soubry, I mean, or Sarah Wollaston, you know, before she did the, you know, sensible, nice, generous spirited people. I mean, I voted Tory in my past. I know, but I did.
For which?
In the city, you know, I went, you know.
Cameron, was it? Was it Cameron? Was it Cameron?
No, I'm talking, you know, way before then.
Oh, way before. Okay.
But yeah, way before then. But you know, we slot into our tribes and we do what our peers expect and all the rest. And I wasn't particularly engaged.
No, I was gonna say there are some like PPCs, like lived in PPCs and green PPCs who have like headed up some of the grassroots local groups, haven't they? So I guess you can still be very tribal, but also run a group that's cross-party. But if you're just really good at switching hats and just being able to build separate teams and keep your tribe, is tribality a word? No, it's not, is it?
Tribalism.
Tribalism, I guess.
Tribalism, yes.
We'll go with that. That works, yeah.
Yeah,
you also
that is a word.
Author, aren't you, Anthea? I forget to have added it in. And but that's, I guess that's just something that every campaign has to deal with to a certain extent, isn't it? Because you know you're always going to have people who are party political, pretty much. So let's move on. So I wanted to ask you how. So when I was running Inspire You, one of the things that my brother and I, when we were talking about how we build the campaign and build our database, blah blah blah, was to say, how do we move all the young people who we know, like 75%, 80%, particularly like Gen Z, are pro-EU? How do we get them to become activists? How do you cross that bridge? How do you get them to that energy, which some of them have, but they're just not prepared to go on a street stall or on a march or something? What were the devices you use, the campaigning strategies you use to actually convert people from a supporter and get them to actually spend their Sundays, Saturdays and Sundays, you know, in the rain, out on street stalls? How do you get someone from a supporter to an activist?
Well, I think the leadership on each of the teams is, you know, on the street stall team. So people like Simon Chater, you know, he's got a following. He's got people who would do anything and everything, you know, that he asked of them.
He's a legend.
To be part of that. To be part of that team. And I think what one of the things that we did was to put very good people in charge of each of the street stall areas, and they built up a very loyal. And people wanted to be part of it, you know, and there was a bit of a social afterwards. So it wasn't just all campaigning and all pressure. And also we had a sort of buddy system. We looked after people. We just made them feel part of the family, and people wanted to be part of that. So I think that was pretty key. Obviously, communication with them. I think the other feeling is that I think people felt that Devon for Europe was a winning team. You know, it was a winning team. It was very powerful. It was one of the ones that other people looked up to, that other people came to and said, oh, can we copy this? Can we borrow that? Can we have the, you know, we'd sometimes go and parachute. I mean, Alex went down and got Cornwall for Europe going, really. You know, Manuel said, you know, she said, well, I needed that injection of energy and experience to make me feel, yeah, we can do this. And I think that's quite a lot of it.
Yeah, because it's worth noting as well that yourself and Alex and the team who started Devon for Europe, none of you were professional campaigners or had much campaigning experience. Did Alex have any experience?
None whatsoever.
Right.
Hadn't been politically engaged at all.
Yeah. So basically learned on the job how to be a campaigner. He
just started it from absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And was just single-minded, and he's a good strategist, you know. He's and he thinks about what the other side might do or how people might react, or so I think that's what one of the things that it's hard to sort of get over is the campaign had two aims. One aim was actually to build the bubble, so bring as many people into the bubble as possible, and the other was to get beyond the bubble. And I think once it's very, very powerful. Once somebody's been on a street stall and they've converted somebody, or got somebody to think twice about it, go, do you know, actually, yeah, no, I am gonna sign up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do actually want to sign up. I do want to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
Is very, very motivational. You know, it's in that respect, it does have some links to sort of evangelicals standing on street corners, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what evangelicals are, though, aren't they? They are campaigners.
Yeah.
They're trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spreading the word, inspiring people, and making people feel good about doing something.
Yeah. 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 Last two questions then. So, what now for the pro-EU community, in the sense that do you think they should, for the time being, focus on not rejoining as such, but on combating the ERG and damage limitations? Or do you think that the energy that we have, obviously within the community, we've got experience now, we know our arguments, so we're blooded. If there was a referendum tomorrow, we would be so well prepared compared to 2016, for instance. But do you think we should use that experience and that everything we've accumulated over the last 5-6 years, do you think we should use that now to just try and hold the ERG to account, remove them as soon as possible in the short term? Or do you think we should just be bang, 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 rejoin, let's just go? What do you think?
My personal view is, and it goes back to that comment I made earlier about us being ambassadors for the EU. I think part of our job is we have a number of jobs. Provide a safe haven for kindred spirits and people who change their minds. Campaign for electoral reform, because that's going to be key. And if we want to join the EU again, we're going to have it anyway. We can't, you know, with this ridiculous first past the post system, it's not acceptable. Be an ambassador for Europe and for the EU, and that means keeping on top of what they're doing and knowing what they're doing, so that you can say, well, this is happening in the UK, but in Europe they're doing this. They've stopped this, or they're encouraging that, or they're investing in this area, that area. And I think those of us who are active campaigners have a duty to keep on top of what's going on.
Will the Bylines Network be involved in any of that sort of stuff?
Well, part of our role is obviously to call out the lies and to highlight what's actually happening compared with what we're being told is happening. And that's a very important part of the role. And that is a key part of the role. I mean, we're really, along with Bylines itself, we're really doing the job that mainstream media, because of its ownership and its agenda, cannot, will not, and just won't ever do.
Well, a lot of these are campaigning out. The Telegraph, the Express, they're campaigning outlets, aren't they? Let's be honest, they're not.
Yes, well, it's propaganda. Actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Straight propaganda. So we have to counter that. And I think also, but one of the things in Bylines is it's certainly not EU centric at all.
No.
It's about human faces to the real issues that are facing the country. And some of those are Brexit related, some of them are COVID related.
Yeah.
Some of them are to do with investment in education or in access to opportunity or mental health or whatever. And I think, and we're there to say, yeah, your story is valid, and it's, let us tell it. Not that, we're kind of not, it's not all do-goody stuff, but it's just about truth.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Journalists telling the truth. I mean, what a radical idea.
I know. So what? So and rejoining. I'm not crazy about re anything apart from rebellion and resistance, and reading. But I think it's about actively joining, not any hint of going backwards or patching it up or anything like that. It's about a positive decision to say, yeah, we are European, we are part of Europe. That is the bloc with whom we share the most values, with the most culture, with the just bloody geographical proximity.
Yeah.
And we want to be alongside, shoulder to shoulder with those guys. And we want them.
Eurozone, like the full. Would we even have a choice? Would the EU be like, you can have all your opt-outs again?
Well, the thing is, I think by the time we come to, we're going to be probably worse than Greece. So I think it would be very unwise to take us into the EU and into the euro anyway, probably. I mean, we are going to be the super sick man of Europe again.
Yeah.
So that might not be an immediate thing, but we will. What you want is for everybody to feel, yeah, I'm in. I want to be part of that. I want that.
So for now, we're just not going to talk about Schengen and the Eurozone, because that's just not a vote winner at all.
It's not. No, and it's not going to happen. You know.
But I thought countries that join now have to join the Eurozone.
Oh yeah. But I'm saying that actually joining again is not an imminent thing.
Not imminent. If you had to put like a timeline, like so some of the guests I've had on this have said, so some have said sort of within a decade, some have said sort of slightly over a decade, but the 10 years seems to be sort of like the average of what people think. Are you similarly inclined, or do you think it's going to be longer, shorter?
Well, I probably, if Alex was it, he'd probably shoot me. I mean, because this is probably not what I'm at, but I think it'd go one of two ways. Either I think we could find that we're very, very quickly begging to go back into the single market and the customs union. And before you know it, businesses will be saying, actually, this is where we belong. If you could, root out the ERG and all of that toxicity, you could find yourself in a situation where we're back in again much faster, much faster. I mean, it's a bit pie in the sky, but it's not impossible.
Just, do you mean like incrementally, like rejoin Erasmus, rejoin Horizon, then the next minute rejoin the customs or a customs union, then so that we just go through the steps? Like we'll do like the Ukraine, we'll have like a Ukraine version, then a Turkey, then a Switzerland, then a Norway, and then all of a sudden we're just like, we might as well rejoin again. Do you think that could happen?
Well, I think it could almost be a sort of big bang, a massive backlash.
Literally in one fell
swoop. Just saying, no, that was a complete fuck up. Those guys are gone. Thank God they're gone. We want them out. They've lied to us. They've wrecked potentially wrecked the country. Revolution. And I would attach a very, very low probability to that, but I don't think it's impossible.
No.
But yeah, I'd probably be a lot, with the 10-year guys.
10 years, yeah. I mean, what would you say is like worst case scenario? I mean, worst case scenario, obviously we never rejoin, or the whole Europe burns down or something. But like, what would you say is kind of like, if you're being a little bit more conservative with your estimations? I mean, do you think obviously it took the Eurosceptics like 40 years? I mean, do you think it would take?
Actually, my worst case scenario is that we have such a significant brain drain of European facing youngsters that we just gradually slide into a decline where we're just literally
Little England,
money laundering, tax dodging, satellite thing, and anybody with any get up and go has got up and gone. And Scotland's gone and Ireland's reunified, and the Welsh wish they could go and they can't, and it'll be very, very sad and toxic, negative little place, prison island.
And that's actually, I mean, there are a lot of very good reasons to think that could genuinely happen, because there's precedent in history of former superpowers just eating themselves alive with toxic nostalgia and just voting in plutocrats. And we are there now. We are a fully fledged plutocracy, in the sense that the people in power currently do the bidding of one group of people only in society, and that's literally the super wealthy and the people in the sort of illiberal elites. So yeah, I mean,
and when you see what's happening to education, I mean, that really, really scares me. Is if we'd been, I mean, that's one of the things I'd really like to see. I'd like to see European values and European, wanting to be European, part of children's education and part of their opportunity set. But what we're seeing, and it's being exacerbated obviously by COVID, is even more barriers to social mobility and to opportunity than ever before. And I think that what this lot want, obviously it's a kleptocracy, and they want a whole lot of dumbed down. You're lucky to get, whatever we give you, you're bloody lucky to have it.
Yeah.
And anybody who's against it is gone because, they've given up the fight. It's a very, very ugly dystopian vision, but it's, as you say, it's not impossible.
It's not impossible. No, I mean, the Victorian England style future, which Jacob Rees-Mogg and the ERG are clearly trying to rebuild, isn't it? But yeah, okay, right. I've taken up an hour of your time, so I want to end with a final thing. So if you were speaking to, suppose I was a either I'd been apathetic in the past or I'd voted Brexit or something, and I'm changing my mind, what message would you give to those people? I'm looking at Brexit and I'm looking at the situation in the country and I'm thinking, it's not going well. Maybe I should have engaged a bit more. I don't know where to go. Who should I listen to? What should I join? What's your parting message to those people?
Ooh, that's a big one, isn't it?
You've got to have your speech ready.
Right. Find the kindred spirits.
Yeah.
Question everything. Think to yourself all the time, what if this was me? What if this was me disadvantaged by this development? What if it was my kids or my family? How would I feel? And just be prepared to care.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really be prepared to care, and to not say, my kind of motto, and I've actually got a neon sign that I had made that says no if onlys. And really it's basically, I don't want anybody to ever say, what did you do? Or I didn't do everything I could. I have to know that I did everything I could. And I know that's a bit extreme, it's not for everybody, but I would say to people, just live your life with no if onlys. If only I just cared a bit more, if only I'd said something, if only I'd written to my MP, if only I'd voted. Just care and do something that shows that you care. You don't have to go the full hog. You don't have to do what some of us, extreme nutters, give all our time and life to it.
And if they live in Devon, then presumably join Devon
for Europe. Join Devon for Europe. Read West Country Bylines, share it with people, and just keep and be an ambassador for European values. That's it, basically.
Yeah, that's a nice way to end. Well, Anthea, thank you very much. Thank you for giving me an hour of your time. And I guess all that's left to say is we gave it a good go. Obviously, we lost the general election in 2019, which sort of ended the People's Vote campaign, but the community lives on and grows. And grows. And young people, from my experience talking to young people, they are bitter, they are angry, they're not changing their views on this. So in my opinion, just to add to what you said at the end there, I can definitely see us building on this momentum and rejoining or joining within the next 10, 15 years or so. So yeah. So thank you very much, Anthea Simmons.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much, James.
Super. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Next week on the show, we have Femi, a fellow youth campaigner, one of the loudest pro-EU voices out there over the course of the last few years. We talk about the importance of young people in campaigning, why it was that there were so few young people willing to come on the marches, but also why young people are so pro-EU in general. We talk about the importance of grassroots campaigning and where we go next as a community. I hope to see you then. Thanks so much.